market conditions are changing. Everything is changing. You have new opportunities like knocking on your door every day. Like if I set my goals at the beginning of the year and only looked back at them at the end, normally like I've gone off in a completely different but so much better direction. And if I only achieved the goals that I set, I'd be failing myself, right? So you have to be so fluid and moving and keep yourself open to opportunities.
Welcome to the Obsessed with Real Estate show. I am your host, Alana George, and I am obsessed with real estate. I had a great time interviewing Francesca Lampert with the Johnson Lampert Group today, and I can't wait to share it with you. We talked about so many great things. She's doing so much at such a young age. We talked about flipping. We talked about her becoming a developer and why she loves Section 8 so much. And we also get into her obsession with a really weird food that I'd never heard of. And you'll just have to hear the episode to find out what it is. Before we hop in, I want to touch on two topics right now. One is that my daughter stayed home sick from school today. So she will be popping in and out. And this was a bit of a choppy episode because I constantly had to go change the TV for her, get her a new snack, this or that, entertain her. So hopefully it can be a smooth edit. So we'll see. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Show must go on. And the second is I want to talk about how important it is to give ourselves grace. And that's my challenge for you this week, or even just today, if that's all you can manage, is to give yourself grace today. That we achievers, entrepreneurs, constantly have these like to-do lists and goals and aspirations. And that can be all well and dandy, but we are going to have off days, and that doesn't mean you're having an off life. I feel as though a theme that I've been hearing in the past week that speaks to me is people sharing, and I can definitely relate, is the voice in our heads that say we're not where we're supposed to be. And especially around birthdays, for some reason, this voice gets even louder. A milestone of a year, right? Which I have a birthday coming up in the next month or so. So it could happen to me too. But a voice comes up and says, at this point in your life, you should be further, or comparing ourselves to other people that have maybe what we want in a certain arena of our lives, right? And that can come up in every aspect of our lives. We can compare ourselves, and it's really easy with social media. It's really easy, listening to these interviews, especially like I interview people that are so young and successful and getting into this. And it can feel as though that we get behind, and it's just not the case. So I just needed to take this platform to remind you that you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. You're not behind. And it takes a lot of courage to believe that you're in the exact right place at the exact right time, and your life has meaning and it's on the right track. If you don't have the courage to believe that today, just believe that I believe that it's true for you. Okay, let's get into the show. So I'm here with Francesca Lampert with the Johnson Lampert Group, aka Fran, and she is a good friend of mine. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. This is my first time on a podcast, actually.
Oh, really? Well, first of many, I hope.
Yes. I have a voice for radio, I've been told. No. I never heard of that. So squeaky.
Well, a face definitely for the camera. So happy that you're here. So Fran and I met through a mutual friend, a mutual realtor, my BFF, real estate soulmate, who will be coming on the show as well. And that's Jasmine. And you two work at the same office, the same company.
Brokerage.
For the same brokerage. So you guys became friends. And then she is a great connector and brought us together.
She's so funny. She marched into my very first actually broker's tour, and she's like, we're going to be best friends. And I was like, all right, you don't say no to her.
I'm not that good at making friends. And So she kind of glommed on to me as well. And the next thing I knew, we were best friends, and I don't even know how it happened. So she had a master plan, and so good for her. But she brought us together as well. And now we are in the Homegirls group of real estate and investors and realtors. And we meet quarterly as well as we text every day.
Yeah, that has been such a huge like accountability aspect for me. That's been so great, not just for like my real estate business, but also my investing business, which I'll kind of refer to separately.
Right. I agree. And I've mentioned this in a prior episode about, how important accountability is. And so we text each other every morning with our top 3 to 5, usually, priorities for the day, and then a wrap up either at the end of the day or before starting the next day, how we did, right? Check boxes or X's on things we did or we didn't do. And it's not like there's a punishment for not accomplishing those things, but there's definitely a part of accountability of just saying you're going to do it and then saying that you didn't do it. And then, are you going to do it today? Right.
And how good is it when you can like do all 3 to 5 check marks, right?
Yeah.
It's so good. And then you guys heart it. Oh, so good. That's what I need. The little things.
Yeah, a little pat on the back, you get a little heart reaction. I would say that it's very rare that I get all check boxes.
We're not perfect people.
I think I have like overly ambitious daily tasks.
I didn't even send mine yesterday. So,
well, I noticed. I know.
Yeah. I know I think you said something too. You're like, oh, welcome back.
Jasmine did. So yeah, that's been, super crucial for me as well, is just, I have my to-do list every day, but really looking at that and then narrowing it down, like what are the 3 to 5 things that are going to like push the needle or push me the most today? Because sometimes like our lists get so bogged down with activities or tasks that aren't really moving us closer to our goals. So having to take that and really prioritize that, for me at least, it really puts the day into perspective on what I should be putting my time and energy to. And I mentally know when I'm not.
Exactly. That's so true, because sometimes I'll have a really busy day and I'm like, wow, I accomplished so much. And then I'll look back at the priorities that I set at like 7 a.m. and I'm like, I didn't do any of those things. And I was just like stuck in the mud, which I mean, real estate is a lot of mud and we have to put out a lot of fires. But it's like, if every day, even if it's just one thing or half of the thing that we can chip away at to like move us forward, I mean, it's a productive day. So it's nice to, for like perspective.
Yeah, for perspective and seeing the big picture, because we do set our 90-day goals. And so we always have to check in, like if we're on track for that, which if you haven't read, because I know you said you don't read, but any of the listeners, what is the 12-week year? I think it's called the 12-week year, and I could put that in the show notes. That is an amazing book for business planning on a quarterly basis. And it goes into detail about how when we business plan for a full year, like a lot of times we will slack until the very end. And that's why at the end of the year or the end of your fiscal year or whatever, we can get so much done because we're under the pressure. And so instead of planning on a year basis, plan on a 90-day basis or a 12-week. And then so we're constantly under the deadline. And that's kind of what I feel like we've been doing with our 90-day goals or quarterly meetings. And I feel like that's been really helpful as well.
Especially too, I think like, especially in real estate where like market conditions are changing and there's just so much, everything is changing. You have new opportunities like knocking on your door every day. Like if I set my goals at the beginning of the year and only looked back at them at the end, like normally like I've gone off in a completely different, but so much better direction. And if I only achieved the goals that I set, I'd be failing myself. Right. So you have to be so fluid and moving and keep yourself open to opportunity. So I think if you pigeonhole and stick yourself into like, I'm going to achieve these this year, like you're just not going
right. And goals change because we do set yearly goals every year. And sometimes I look back at those in December or even midway through and say like, oh, I don't even want to do that anymore. Whatever it is that I set.
Like a week later.
I don't mean like achieving it, but my yearly goals are like all encompassing, right? So like, oh, I want to travel to here or travel there. And then like things change, plans change, right? And now something else is more important and that has lost its importance if that's a word, importance to me. And so, having the 90-day kind of keeps it a little bit more fluid. So anyways, that was a large tangent.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. We chat, via text every day on that. And that's been a lot of fun. So Francesca, I want you to tell us a bit about your background and what led you to real estate and real estate investing.
Yeah. So I'm sitting right here at my office in Menlo Park, and I was born and raised in the Bay Area in Redwood City, where I actually still reside. After jumping around a little bit for college and stuff. But I was able to stay in the Bay Area. And so backing up a little bit, I had graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in English. So I do read, I just don't read like self-help books.
Okay.
And I like, I'm reading Game of Thrones right now. So I like novels and stuff because that's like my background. So I graduated from UC Berkeley, 2015. And I worked for a children's book publisher, which is a little different than real estate, just as cutthroat. Publishing is a pretty crazy business. But I was about 2 years at the company that I was at in San Francisco, and I left there and I sort of had to decide if I wanted to continue pursuing publishing, move to New York and be like a publishing girly, or what I really wanted to do, which was stay in the Bay Area, there's not a lot of publishing companies, locally. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to go into tech or real estate. I was 23 years old. And real estate I ended up working for an agent that I knew. I didn't think that I wanted to be a real estate agent at all. Actually, my dad, I was like having a talk with him. He's a contractor and he just moved back from Switzerland. He's my roommate right now. I'll talk about that later when we talk about some of the projects we're working on. And he was like, oh, like you're going to be a real estate agent. And I was like, ew, no, like I just thought like greasy car salesman. I was like, no, absolutely not. But I started working for a real estate agent. I was doing her marketing, and then I just totally got the bug. And I was like, wait, I love this. So then I went out on my own. And I've been working in real estate ever since. And then pretty quickly after, actually while I was studying for the exam, I was listening to Bigger Pockets purely just to get the lingo down and like kind of have it in the back of my head while I was studying. And that's where I really realized like, oh, okay, real estate investing is going to be like part of my real estate business. It'll make me a better real estate agent, and it'll be like my retirement as well. And I didn't realize how big of like a part of my life it would be, where I'm really working on it in different forms every day. But it was sort of in the back of my head from the start, like, okay, this is how real estate agents retire, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the short version of how I became a real estate agent and an investor.
So you said a lot of things that were really intriguing to me. First, I 100% agree. Before I became a real estate agent, when I like heard of real estate agents, like it was the first thing that came to mind as well. I remember being at a conference. It was just for like, because I've always been into like personal finance and growth and stuff like that. So I had gone to this speaking event that like Robert Kiyosaki was at. And this guy got up and said he was a business owner. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, I come from a family of business owners. And then the speaker like questioned him further, like, oh, what line of business? He's like, oh, I'm a real estate agent. And I remember like scoffing so hard. Like, you think you're a business owner? Like I had this like mindset, like of, you know, only brick and mortars are allowed to be called businesses, or right, like as if it wasn't like a job worth taking seriously. And then like fast forward, I don't know, 7 to 10 years, I was a real estate agent
and business owner. I remember like one of my first days, I came home and I was talking to my mom, and she's like, you know, how's your first day? I was like a real estate assistant basically, and they had like an office meeting, and I was like, Mom, I think I just joined like a multi-level like marketing scheme. Like this is so weird. But I think like the beauty of it is like you can make it what you want to be, and we don't have to be like used car salesman. Although that's also a very respectable field. But let's not hate. Lazy, right? We don't have to be the real estate agents that we don't like, and I think it's actually our duty to be better. So
absolutely,
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way. But I do feel like there obviously are real estate agents that give the whole industry a bad name. Like people have had bad experiences, and there's a lot of money to be made. So I think that attracts a certain type of person. And so yeah, I kind of understand it, but I've definitely had friends say to me like, oh, I can't believe you're a real estate agent. I just didn't see you as that kind of person.
No, when I go to parties, people are like, what do you do? And I go, oh, is that the cheese dip? Like, I don't even like want to like get it in here. Right. Like if people like, knew me, I'm like, obviously I'm obsessed with real estate. I want to talk about it, but it's like,
yeah,
I don't want to be dropping that. Right. So
that's so funny. So it's your little dark secret.
Yeah.
So another thing that I thought was really interesting that you said was that how much you valued location over your career path, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much you valued being in the Bay Area over, what you did. It's like, well, if I just want to live here and I will figure it out over like literally living where you would pursue the career of what you went to school for.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a bit about that? Like, what was the biggest influence to keep you in the Bay Area or bring you back?
Yeah. Which is funny too, because I love New York. Like I would live there and I seriously considered it, but ultimately like all my family's here. And so I want to be close to my family. That's really important to me. And then also I went to the UC Berkeley and I did all my schooling here and all my connections and like network are here. So I just feel like no matter what business I'm in, and that's sort of compounded by the fact that I did choose to be a real estate agent, which is so location specific. But I just felt like my network and all my connections and my experience and my knowledge was here. So, I love to travel. I went to the University of Arizona for a semester. I went to San Luis Obispo for 2 years, finished in Berkeley, like slowly worked my way home. And the Bay Area, I just love the Bay Area. It's such a hard place to leave. I've tried, but it's too hard. So I was like, I love it here. Fine, I'll stay.
That's great. That's wonderful. It sounds like it's your place. I could definitely see you in New York though, as well. Like being
like a little trench coat that I'm wearing.
Yeah,
like,
maybe it's your outfit, your sleek hair. I don't know, but I could totally see you being like a publishing gal there as well. So,
but it is funny that you mentioned how like location focused I was, because even in my investing, it's the same. It's really important for me. Like I always say, like I invest in my backyard. And so all of my investment properties are, within like a 45, 50 mile radius.
Which I don't hear too often. A lot of times the sentiment I get is not to invest in California. A lot of agents, a lot of investors are anti-California for investing for, buy and holds for long terms because it's very tenant friendly and not as landlord friendly.
Yeah. And for me, like, I don't mind that it's tenant friendly. Like there's nothing that stops me from doing with my situation and the way that I have it set up. So that's fine with me. And I also think for me, like, the old adage where it's like, if you're going to drive to grandma's house, you want to be able to like see your property. That's really important to me. And again, like all my network is here. So I don't know if I could be as effective abroad. Like I'd have to be way more organized probably to do that. Right. So I think in some ways it's a lot more work. In some ways it's less. So it's sort of what I've chosen and it's what I know and obviously what I love. So. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into your situation that you mentioned, what you're investing in, but I 100% agree. And there's a lot of times that I wish that I lived closer to my investments. Like, I was just there, right? Because obviously my investments are super far away in Northeast Ohio. And they're like, right now I'm going through a remodel and it's taking forever, mostly because it's out of sight, out of mind. And I'm having trouble with hiring and there's this and that. And there's a lot of things that it's like, if I was just there and I could be hands-on, like this wouldn't be a problem. But
yeah, that's right. There's something about that. I think that's where I thrive. And that's one of my strengths. So I need to play to my strengths.
Right. Okay. So let's get into, I want to hear about your first deal in investing.
Yeah, it was actually, it was pretty recent. It was at the beginning of 2021. So it was almost 2 years ago, but technically last year. I bought a cute little turnkey Spanish style duplex in Oakland, California. So in the Bay Area, I'm in Redwood City, so it's across the bay. So I'm on the peninsula. which I couldn't afford to purchase in. So what I did was I originally started, researching places that I could drive to fairly easily, like do day trips to. I was originally looking in San Luis Obispo, just because I knew that area from going to school there for a while and I love it. And then I ended up, I heard about this off market in Sacramento. So I started exploring that area and I almost pulled the trigger on a duplex there. And ultimately I just started like applying my metrics to random cities essentially. And Oakland totally surprised me and shocked me and just had great numbers. It's a rare area where, Oakland's a big place, but the areas of Oakland that I was looking in, the purchase prices are still fairly low. There's a lot of inventory because it's such a big place, but the rental prices are pretty wild. So a really good return on investment there that I did not expect. And I sort of just stumbled upon it randomly, like applying my metrics everywhere. And sort of, I had gone to Berkeley, one town over, so I sort of knew the area, but it ended up just working really well there. And I just did a ton of research there. So I was looking for a couple months and I found the duplex, and it has a detached garage, which came with plans to knock down the garage and convert it into a studio. So that sparked my interest too, because I love being able to value add in some ways. And especially if I can create more housing and basically turn my duplex into a triplex without having to buy another door. So that really intrigued me. They're 2-bedroom, 1 baths. The right side was already occupied by a really great Section 8 tenant. She's still there. And then the other side, it was owner occupied. So that was vacant. And I ended up renting that out to another Section 8 tenant because I realized how great this program was. It was early 2021. So the COVID eviction moratorium was still in place. I think a lot of reason people don't like California, the eviction moratorium, it is November 2022, and it's still in place there. So what that means is if I had a tenant who decided to stop paying me, there's not a lot that I can do. So freaks out a lot of people. I get it.
How did you prevent that from happening?
Yeah, well, I can't, but how I made
it doesn't sound like any of your tenants have stopped paying, or else that might have come out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's true. And my whole thing is, even if they did, my numbers still work. So I just assume when I run the numbers that my tenants are just going to stop paying me. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I have great tenants. I adore them.
I mean, because you're buying small multifamilies, you're saying that if one of the tenants, all of the numbers still work. If one of the tenants stops paying.
If both of my tenants stopped paying, my numbers would still work. And that's because, I know, that's the hook. And that's because I rent to Section 8, which is partially guaranteed rent.
Okay.
So it all comes down to a percentage. And that's between the tenant and Oakland Housing Authority. But for example, one of the figures is my rent is, the rent that I charge, that I'm paid on one unit is $2,300 a month. And they only pay $200 a month to me. And the rest is I get a check on the first of every month from Oakland Housing Authority with the rest. So that number that my tenants pay me, obviously is lovely. And, I factor that into my numbers, but it wouldn't hurt me that significantly if they were to stop paying.
That is amazing. And I love hearing stories about people overcoming being in an expensive market that most people are afraid of. And Oakland can be scary for multiple reasons, right? Not just because it's in California and it's super tenant friendly, right? But there's a lot of seedy areas that I think, deter a lot of potential investors.
Yeah. But I've just taken that sort of for what it is. And it's okay, but Section 8 is such a great program, not just for, the tenants, obviously. Actually, it's so backed up. They haven't opened, Oakland hasn't opened the Section 8 wait list since 2013. And they're still at such a deficit. So many people need housing. So if I'm able to provide a little bit of housing for those in need, that's great. And so I can kind of do my small part in that. There's just such an overwhelming need and the local projects can't keep up, right? Like Oakland can't do it themselves. So it really comes down to a lot of these like mom and pop landlords or bigger developers who have are incentivized to do low market housing to provide for this. So it's like a small thing that I can do while also like protecting myself and my investment. So I just see it as a win-win. And Section 8 is like such an amazing program because of that. So that's my first deal, this duplex in Oakland. It has like a 7% cap rate right now. Mm-hmm. And then we're converting the garage. So I actually scrapped the plans that I bought it with because it was to knock it down the garage and build a studio. But if I knocked it down, I would have to move it closer into the lot because of the setbacks versus remodeling and converting in place. And there's smaller lots where I buy. They're 3,500 max. So I really wanted to maximize that. So we actually remodeled the garage in place. And I turned it into a 1-bedroom instead of a studio, which again, for rentals, especially Section 8, that it really comes down to the bedroom count, which is really important because that's how their vouchers work. So it makes it a little bit easier for everyone.
Do you go through the site, gosection8.com?
Yeah, that is one resource. So I typically, when I put my unit, I've only had to put the one unit on actually, because the other one's just been rented. But the other one, I put it on Zillow, just as regular. You actually cannot discriminate and choose to not rent to Section 8 tenants. But I just make it really friendly I always put the disclaimer like Section 8, please apply, just to make sure they feel comfortable, because I think it's a really frustrating process for a lot of these people. And also there are voucher standards about payment regarding studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. There's a limit that they are able to use. So I always make sure that I'm below that limit. And I think that sort of signals that I'm Section 8 friendly, open, welcoming. And actually those numbers are really interesting. I encourage anyone looking in Section 8 to look up those numbers in the area. And HUD just updated theirs. I think it was the same from like 2018 or 2019. So they just updated them for 2022. And so all of those numbers increased by like $500. So basically my 2 bedrooms, which were originally, they had a cap at like $2,335. They're now like $2,700, I think. So in theory, I can raise my rents to that amount pretty easily.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I will admit that when I first heard you talking about this, and of course, subsequential conversations were like, yeah, I just bought another one. Da, da, da. Right. I'm like, oh my God, I need to look at Oakland.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I think Section 8 gets such a bad rap. Like, it's so funny. Anytime I mention, like, I have Section 8 tenants who are like, oh, how's that? Right. I'm like, they've been awesome. Maybe I've been really lucky, but every one of my tenants and my property units have a caseworker. And so it's basically like having I have full-time staff essentially to help me be a good landlord. They do a yearly check on my property. So basically I don't have to. And they'll give me a list of things, like if something isn't safe. And they also give my tenant a list of things that they need to do to keep the unit in good condition. So it's a really nice tool. Like, I feel like I'm on, cheat mode there.
That is really great. And you wouldn't have probably stumbled into this if the duplex you bought didn't already have a Section 8 tenant.
Exactly. And she was just fantastic. And she showed me all the paperwork and she's like, this is how you get started. This is how you transfer the lease. So I'm so grateful for her.
Wow. That is really lucky. I love that.
You never know where you're going to learn, right?
So you completed that garage remodel or no?
No, not yet. I actually I called this morning and set up the foundation plumbing inspection. So it's been slow going. I have an amazing contractor. It's my dad. We just started working together in the last year. But I keep ripping him off of that job because it's my own, right? So he's been working on my listings. He's been working on other projects. But the goal is to finish that up sort of by the end of this year or so. We'll see.
Do you think that you weren't afraid of taking on a construction project or that conversion because you grew up having a dad in construction?
Yeah, I definitely have always been comfortable around construction. I remember my parents, They would always live in houses, live in the garage, remodel the house, and then flip it. They divorced when I was 5, though. So I was a little less, that was sort of less my life growing up. And then when I was 18, my dad actually moved to Switzerland, back to where he grew up. And so he just came back this past year. So I definitely had like a taste of that, sort of indirectly. But now I'm really comfortable with construction with my business partner. He has a really big construction background. We help our clients fix up their houses, and we've been doing so much work on that end. And we have 2 full-time construction crews that work with us. So now tackling like my own projects, it's like, oh, that's easy. I'm the client versus, working for other people. So yes, I feel really comfortable taking on these projects because I do a handful a year for clients. So going and doing it on, my own is piece of cake, keeps the guys busy. Perfect. So
that's great. That could definitely be intimidating for a lot of people, especially in California, maybe even just being a woman, looking at that as a huge deterrent to getting into it, right? Because we know like California and then probably Oakland as well is like really strict on permitting, and that the process is expensive and long and tedious and terrible. So I've gotten
lucky. I've gotten to avoid a lot of the permitting stuff because Bob, that's what his background is. He's so good at it. But so doing it on my own, I'm like, oh gosh, it's a lot of paperwork.
Paperwork is the hard part.
So I think that just kind of ties into what I was saying earlier about playing to your strengths. With my construction crews, the background, the network that I have, I really enjoy going to the job sites every day, seeing what's going on, design. That's something that I really enjoy and that I'm good at. So I like to find these properties where I can value add this versus I'm not necessarily like the most organized. So having to do that from afar would be really difficult for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So tell us about what you learned from that deal.
I learned about Section 8, Oakland, which I just really believe in. And so now for all of my long-term holds, I'm going to be focusing on that area. I keep doing the numbers in different areas and I don't get them. I think too, there's a lot of appreciation there that we're going to see.
Yeah, you're probably getting, what am I trying to say? Like, I don't want to say double dipping, but a lot of markets, you either have appreciation or cash flow. And I think that you've found like this sweet spot of it's in the Bay Area, so it's going to appreciate, but it's also magically cash flowing really well as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that property, just transparently, it cash flows about $2,000 a month. Once the conversion's finished, that's going to be about double. And so that's what I'm focused on. That's like the only number I focus on. Like, I know everyone says this, I never want to sell my real estate. But I don't, that's not my goal. So I just sort of ignore like the increasing values. And maybe if I refi and pull some cash out, eventually I'll appreciate it.
Yeah. You'll appreciate it. There.
But that was sort of like secondary to me. But yeah, you're right. It's rare that you find both. And like with my investors that look in the peninsula, their numbers are so different than mine, right? And that just wasn't sustainable for me.
Right.
The money that I have, it's from my commissions, and that's supposed to be like my retirement plan. So it needs to be really sustainable. I'm really sensitive to that.
I think that that's super smart. That you're investing as an agent. I think that I'm always surprised when I talk to real estate agents that aren't investing, when it's like, this is what you do. Like, you help other people buy and sell. Like, why wouldn't you get into this? You can see what's going on, it in, the best. So anyways.
And I always tell all my clients, I'm like, even if you're buying your first home, like it's an investment. You're going to probably make money. And, it's an investment no matter how you look at it. So
right.
Believe in our product.
So share with our listeners what your current portfolio looks like now.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place. I have a little bit of everything. I think I'm just really excited about everything. So I have the Oakland spot. In the past, I sold this. We did a quick flip. Full disclaimer, I hate the word flip. I think it's just like a terrible, kind of like the word real estate agent, right? Like it's just, I think it has like a terrible connotation. And I like to think that I'm not flipping anything. I do, I like to think that I come in and do meaningful and thoughtful rehabs of properties. Maybe that's a little too self-important, but that's how I feel.
I think, it's really deep. Flip goes into like, I think of quick, shoddy work just to make a buck. And with the real estate industry somehow developed rehab, which is really an interesting word to use. We rehabilitated the home. It was like basically a drug addict before, and now we got it on its feet and it's got a good job and healthy relationships, has a family. It's like such an interesting use of words. It's like they went from one extreme to the other, right? I think rehab might be a little bit too deep.
We need to find an in-between word.
Yeah, that is just a one-worder, right? Because I think that, what you're doing is you're playing a middleman, because the biggest buyer pool are people that are just buying to live in it. They want a safe place that's, clean, updated for their family. And they don't want to do it themselves. They have their own day job. And you're taking a home that, otherwise nobody would want, right? And then turning it into something that people could actually live in. And so I think of like quality flippers as really doing a service to the community, to the neighborhood, right? And then also to the families that end up living there, because it's another way to provide housing.
Exactly. And this house was literally not habitable because there was a squatter there. So someone could not live there. I can talk really briefly about that. It was an interesting scenario where a client brought us the house. It was theirs, and they needed to sell it. They didn't want to evict the non-paying tenant. She had stopped paying 5 years ago, and it was just a really heartbreaking situation for everyone. And she's like, I don't want some big developer to come in, like run her out. Like, how can you do this, respectfully? So my partner, Bob, and I ended up purchasing the home, and we rehoused her. We did a cash for keys. So she's very comfortable now. That was really important to all of us. And we ended up fixing up the house. I worked with my dad on that. And we did really well on that property. It was interesting too. Like, we're always trying to figure out like where the value is. And obviously, so it was a 2-1, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And obviously everyone wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was on a good sized lot. So that was like no problem. So we drew up the plans. Bob draws all our plans. And then Bob and I were running the numbers, and we're like, gosh, we'll probably make about the same money if we put in more money added on versus if we just fix kind of what is here. And then at the end of the day, also, there's not a lot of 2 bedrooms. And if that is able to keep it at a lower price point, it makes it more accessible for people, and we'll probably have more buyers too, potentially. So we ended up keeping it at 2-1, and we did really well on that, and netted about $500,000.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, so that was my first flip.
Yes. Really quickly, in case our listeners don't know, can you do a quick explanation of Cash for Keys?
Yeah, so Cash for Keys is an interesting program. I don't know. I guess it's not just California specific, but we probably use it a little bit more here. And it's basically where if there's a tenant, a squatter, so maybe they don't have a lease in place, and you want them to move out, you don't, or you cannot go through the eviction process. Sometimes it's a hardship. Sometimes it's just a hostile tenant. Obviously, or sometimes it's just someone comes in, opens the door and moves in. There's a form that we have where you can, in exchange for getting the property vacant, they hand you the keys, you can pay them money. Sometimes it is standardized in Oakland. There's actually like rules and suggestions and guidelines about what you're supposed to pay, which is really interesting.
Wow. Okay.
But we just came to a number that everyone was comfortable with. So
Cool. Yeah. The first time I had heard of cash for keys, I kind of thought that it was a little bit of like a under the table, like hush hush kind of thing. But then becoming a realtor and seeing that actually the California Association of Realtors has a form for it. I'm like, oh, this can't be like that, like illegal or
illegal. There's a form for it. It probably too. Well, I mean, anytime you use the word cash, it sounds kind of seedy, right? But I think it's a great, and I think a lot of the times too, you're like, oh, like you hear like tenants saying, oh, like they wanted to kick us out. So they just offered us cash. But sometimes it's the best scenario for everyone rather than having to go through like an eviction process, which no one really wins in my opinion. So.
Right. Which could be even more costly than the cash you gave them, you know.
And then the tenant walks away with nothing. So.
Right. So you're really creating a win-win there.
Yeah, that was important to us. So that was our first flip. We'll think of the word.
All right. Yeah. We'll keep thinking about it. So we talked about the duplex. You're remodeling the garage, and then there's this flip, for lack of a better word. And then tell me more about your current portfolio.
Okay, so I have 2 projects going on right now. One is our slow flip. So I bought a house in Redwood City that needed a lot of work. It basically doesn't have a foundation, small details in a house, right? So my dad, who's also my contractor, my boyfriend, and our really good friend all moved in. I call it the frat house affectionately because I'm living with a lot of men. But we're slowly fixing that up. So slowly, actually, that we haven't really done much yet except move in. It's funny when you're doing like your own project and you don't have like investors or even like a time clock ticking, like with like the Oakland property. It's like, okay, I get this fixed up, I can rent it out, and then that's like off my plate. But this is like, we're gonna, raise the house, fix the foundation. We're all gonna move to one side of the house, do the other, and switch. And it's like, oh, it's gonna be a lot of work. So we haven't been super motivated. So we've done nothing there. Haven't even drawn plans.
Eventually,
and the goal there is to live there for a couple of years. It is our primary, and then fix it up and sell it and probably do it again, depending on if we all kill each other or not. But
I've heard it called a live-in flip as opposed to a slow flip.
Maybe I'm projecting. I'm like let's call it a live-in flip.
You're like painfully slow flip. I'm sure it's called
excruciatingly painful flip.
The not important to us at all. Flip.
We moved in August and it's just been it's been really fun. So I'm really cherishing this, like living with my boyfriend for the first time, living with my dad for the first time since I was, 17. So.
Wow. That's really cool, actually, to have that opportunity on multiple levels. So much good stuff coming about for you because of real estate.
Yeah. Right. And like I said, I wanted to stay in the Bay Area so I could be closer with my family. How much closer can you get?
Yeah, be careful what you project.
Yeah. Gonna get what you're asking for.
So what other projects do you have going on?
Yeah, I have one more, and this is really exciting. It's a complete gut remodel and addition to a luxury home in Woodside, California. We purchased it off market. We acquired it for $2 million. And we're using a mix of private money and also hard money. And zero of my own money is in this project, which is quite different than how I normally do it. And we're projecting that'll sell for about $4 million. I think that's a conservative number. We sold the house 2 doors up for 4.2, and that's definitely comparable. So I'm very excited about that one. That one made me feel like, oh, I'm a big girl investor, right?
Right, because you said you had to raise capital for that, right?
We did, yeah.
How did you go about that?
Yeah, so we went around to our friends and family, past clients. We do again a lot of fixes and selling for our clients. And so a lot of them will come to us and they're like, we want to invest in your next project. So we ended up approaching them, put an LLC together, and they're all getting an annualized return on their initial investment, as well as a profit split at the end. So we project that'll take about a year.
Are you at liberty to share at least what your projected construction costs are?
Yeah, it should be all in, not including like soft money. It's like 700.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah, we only like to look at projects that we're seeing like a 25 to 30% return. That's sort of our barrier there for entry.
Okay. Is there anything else going on?
No, that's it. That's all I know of.
For now.
Yeah, but a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I'm looking for more Oakland deals right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to flip so that I can buy my long-term holds. Right, that's how I pay for that addiction. So to recap, we have we're not calling it a slow flip anymore. We're calling it my live-in flip, my speedy live-in flip.
Yeah.
I have my duplex that's soon to be a triplex in Oakland. And then I have our current rehab flip in Woodside that we acquired that in August too.
Cool. So you have your hand in a few different arenas there. Yeah. I'm excited to see how that flip high-end remodel goes. And I'm excited to see like what kind of return you have for your investors as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That's exciting that you get to share that with other people.
Yeah, no, it's been great. People have really, sought us out and been like, we want to get in on this, right? Because we've done quite a few projects like that. This is the first time that I'm a partner in it, so that's really exciting for me. So
right, and you have a lot of extensive experience with this, because a lot of the clients that you have, because I see you posting your listings, so a lot of your clients you actually do like heavy remodels before putting it on the market, correct?
Exactly. For our clients, either they're sort of like regular sellers that just want to sell their home and net the most money that they can, and I'd rather them get that money than someone buying and fixing up and doing it. So just trying to get the most money for them. But then also I have a lot of developer clients too. I bring them projects and then Bob and I work with them to do that work. So it's nice. I have a lot of practice. And so now I'm able to start kind of doing it myself. But that's why, real estate, being an agent and an investor has just tied in so seamlessly.
Right. There's a bit of risk with flips, especially right now, or even remodeling for your clients, because we're looking at the time clock of, okay, I know when I sit with my clients, it's like if we could do all this work, but if that puts us 6 months out, like we don't know where the market is. Do you encounter that uncertainty or that risk with any of the projects that you're doing?
Sure. It's always like an analysis, and we're always trying to make those decisions as educated and safely as we can, right? I always want to mitigate risks. I think there's a certain balance of, okay, if we do these certain things, like we're confident that it will make the difference. And we've had a lot of good luck with that, especially I think you can mitigate that as much as possible by keeping costs down and just being really smart and intelligent about what you're doing and where you're putting that money. I always tell my clients, I don't want you to put $1 in your house unless you're going to get $3 back. So,
right. And you get to be their consultant and telling them, it's going to go here and it's not going to go there. Right. Which is why they hire you, which is really cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Cause I think too, like homeowners, they're often like, they think about certain things that, would bring more value to them, but it's like, okay, we have to appeal to the consumer. And so it's such a balance.
Right. What are the buyers looking for? Right. Yeah. Right. With listings, as well as any kind of flips that anybody's doing, you want to look at what are the buyers wanting, not what you, the investor, or you, the seller, would like in your own home. It's what's going to bring them the most value to the buyer because they will pay for that. So knowing that and having the insight as an agent, I definitely think that helps you in your own investing businesses, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think as an investor, like I walk through so many homes every day. And I'm just able to see like, oh, like that's interesting that they like chose to prioritize this, or, even just going in and seeing my buyers react to choices that other people make. So I'm able to stay pretty up to date, as are you, with what today's buyer wants. And it's always changing.
Yes. Why I think that input is so important is knowing what the buyers want and having that insight of actually walking through houses, because sometimes I talk to sellers and they're really surprised by what I say is important to the buyers. Sometimes it's generational, right? Like who the buyers are, or where they're coming from, right? Here in the Bay Area, we have a lot of, international buyers and from other areas and other countries. And so sometimes the things that they prioritize aren't necessarily the same as the sellers. And so they're always really surprised. And I'm like, just trust me. I've walked in a lot of houses. I've held a lot of open houses. People are very vocal about the things that they like and they don't like, or the things that they're looking for. Like, we would like this house, except it doesn't have a fill in the blank, right? So knowing that insight has been, crucial. So pivoting a little bit, at this stage of your investing career, right? What are some current challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, I think a current challenge right now is just everything going on in the market right now. I think it's scary for a lot of people. And so just thinking about how to mitigate risk. I think right now is going to be a really hard time I think a lot of flippers got really lucky, in the past 2 years. It just felt like if you bought a home for any price and put money into it, maybe not a lot, and put it back on the market, or even not putting any money into it, right? You see people buying properties and then just selling it, and they make a couple $100,000 just because a couple weeks passed. I think right now that's not the time to do that. So again, just being really smart and careful about how you do things. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just something that we're just really keeping, in the back of our minds right now is we have to do it right.
Right. Being really mindful of what there's less room for error right now.
Exactly. I think we're always really mindful, but exactly. There's less room for error. So we're just always like, all of our decisions we're like, really, thinking about, and is this really going to bring value? So just being really careful. And I think a lot of flippers are going to struggle with that. A lot of people that might have bought, a year ago and are fixing up and going to put it on the market this year, they just might not be getting the numbers that they expect, which again, why is it's so important to have that spread to be safe, or exit options or backup options.
I personally would like to hear about a little brag from you. What are you really proud of yourself for doing?
Oh, this is a fun question.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Those ones are hard. This one is really fun. I would love to hear. Sometimes like it doesn't feel comfortable sharing, right? And you always have to like be mindful of who you're around when you're tooting your own horn. But I really want you to toot right now. Toot that horn.
All right, I'll do. I'm really proud of this last project that we just acquired in Woodside. Okay, this is nerdy, but when I first got started in real estate, I had, which is 5 years ago, I had a little like 5-year list of like everything that I wanted to accomplish in my first 5 years, which by the way was a delusional list. But sometimes they say sometimes it pays to be delusional. So one of my goals was to become a badass real estate developer in Woodside. And so I hit it just under 5 years, where I've been able to acquire this first property in Woodside. We'll see if I'm badass about it. But that was a really big moment for me where I was like looking through, my notes. Oh my God, let me read how many notes I have on my phone. Are you a notes? Like, do you use notes constantly?
Yes. Yeah. I never delete them. It's just.
Yeah. I have 1,488 notes in my phone. Are you going to beat me?
No, I don't think I'm going to beat you. No, I have 570. So not even close.
We got to get those numbers up.
What am I doing? I need to use my notes app more. I could be on your level if I just use it more. That's the
It's mostly grocery lists or real estate or construction punch lists, actually, is what it is a lot of.
Right. I know. I have a lot of visual inspections on there.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm proud of you for that too. And I want to toot your own horn. I want to toot your horn as well, because I forgot to mention in the beginning that you're also, I forgot which year you qualified for 30 under 30 for realtors for being so freaking successful at selling houses.
Thank
so can
you.
Elaborate on that?
Okay, yeah. In 2019, I won the California Realtors Association 30 under 30 title. So there's 30 of us. And then Coldwell Banker actually does a similar program or a similar award. And so in 2020, the next year, I won Coldwell Bankers for, just real estate under the age of 30. So, thank you. It was cool. It's a really great network of agents all over the country. So we have a very cool network to work with. So I'm grateful for that.
So that's really cool. And I'm proud to know you. And so you're super successful in that arena. So I would imagine a lot of those skills easily transfer over, and we will do a follow-up interview, to see how in the years to come, to see how far you've come. And I can't wait to find out. So now I would love for you to share some advice to someone wanting to get into real estate. How could they go along this path to be a developer or flipper or whatever you want to classify yourself as?
Yeah. So I think my advice to beginners would be to know your area, research. I mean, for me, I don't think I would be doing flips necessarily unless I was in the industry in some way. So either as a real estate agent, I always tell my stagers, I'm like, you guys should be, flipping these properties. I love getting my stager in. Alana and I have the same stager. Shout out to Ty.
Hey, Ty.
And I'm always like, oh my, we bring her in super early, right? I'm like, if you're staging the house, I want your advice on paint colors, everything. We get her involved super early. So I'm like some way being involved in the industry, meeting people, building up that construction crew. So maybe it's even as simple as you just did a kitchen remodel on your house. You enjoyed it and you have a contractor that you worked really well with, maybe partner up with them. Just make it make sense, incentivize the people working for you. So I think you can really approach that on any scale. For me, it was really natural as a real estate agent, but I think even, again, just successful of your own remodel of your own. I do a lot of my own projects too. And then I think too, for long-term buy and holds, especially if you're looking in a very high cost living area, just set a big net of where you're kind of comfortable with, where you're thinking, and just start researching by the city. Look up the Section 8, the local housing authority. You can get pretty accurate rent numbers from that because you have the vouchers. You can just run the comps on Zillow or Redfin if you don't, have access. For rentals and just do that balance and try to hit a cap rate or an income level that you're comfortable with.
I love that. So a few good pieces there that I took note of is network, right? Network with others in the industry. If you can be in the industry in some way, shape, or form, that would be helpful as well as it was helpful for you. Also cast a wide net and then narrow it down from there with your specific criteria, as well as look into Section 8 in that chosen area to find out what the numbers would look like for renting to Section 8.
Yeah, exactly. And I think network is so important. You're only as good as your team, period. Flipping is not a one-person sport. It is a team sport. It is a contact sport. And depending, on your strengths, I'm not going to lift a hammer. I'd probably destroy the house on accident and break it. So again, you got to play to your strengths, and you're only as good as your team because it takes so many different kinds of people to pull these things off. So choose your team really wisely. I think a lot of people run into flips where they pick a contractor who, screws them over. They pay them up front and they run away with all their tools. I hear about this all the time. And again, it's just not something that I have to worry about because My team is so solid. I trust these guys like with my life. Not just my dad, but my partner's brother is one of our head contractors. Another person that we've been working with, Bob's known him for 30 years. Your team is so important. It has to be someone that you trust.
That is really great advice. And I'm glad that you elaborated on that, because I definitely thought that's easy for you to say because their contractor's your dad.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's why I'm confident enough to get into it, or having someone that you've been working with for so many years. And I think aligning and incentivizing the goal in mind. So like if you're going to hire a contractor, find a way to make him a part of the project. So your success is his success.
Yes.
Or her success.
Let's, not leave anybody out.
I would say my last piece of advice for people looking to get started, if they don't have that network, maybe they don't have the capital to go in and buy an investment property right away, and they need to build that up and want to get some experience, start as a passive investor. You can invest in funds like mine. And you can kind of be as involved as you want to be. I mean, it can be as passive as you want, but you can go to the job sites, you can ask questions, and you can learn. And if they are a good project manager, they'll be happy to teach you, be transparent, show you the process. So I think that's a really good way too, and then make some money as well.
That is really great advice. And I think your investors are lucky to know you. So I want to hear about your biggest inspiration. Who inspires you?
Yeah, I have to shout out Bob. I think I've mentioned him a couple times in this interview. He is my real estate partner turned investment partner. His mentorship turned into a friendship and a partnership. And we always joke. I'll like say certain things, especially like about construction, which like doesn't really sound right coming out of my mouth always. And people just like look and they're like, she's a mini Bob. Like,
which I've met Bob, and he's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, loves to chat. He'll tell you everything. He's an open book, even if you ask or not.
Yeah, that's right. He's such a good teacher because he just like wants to share all of his knowledge. You should interview him next. He has some crazy stories where he's done huge development projects.
How did you meet Bob?
Just in the office. So I was a couple months in, I had a couple sales under my belt, and someone approached me about land development, which was very interesting to me, but scary. I didn't know anything about it. And so someone said, oh, like you should go talk to Bob. He knows all about land in Portola Valley. And of course he was like, oh yeah, like I used to be in contract on that property. I know all about it. We ended up walking it, and we kind of became friends there. And then he needed help with his marketing, which is what my background is in. So he was asking me for some help. I was asking him for help, and then actually started working together, had a couple of projects together, listings together. And he was like, do you want to be partners? And I was like, no, like, I don't want to like team up with someone, lose my autonomy, and he wore me down. So it was the best decision I ever made. But
that is an adorable story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And anybody else?
Yeah, so I definitely have to shout out Bob. I mean, that's what gave, I caught the real estate bug, and I loved every part of it, but I just didn't really, I loved it, but I just didn't know where it could go. And then Bob's like love for it is just so contagious. And through that, I've been able to start working with my dad again, like as professionals. He's one of our full-time contractors. And I have learned so much from him about that. And also just like in his past, when he was doing, the live-in flips and different projects, learning from him in that way, he always has great advice about that. And so it's been so nice, like getting to know my dad in that way. So that's been really special because, my parents are great. In fact, I grew up with my mom. She was a single mom on a duplex in Redwood City. It's a triplex now because, of course, it is. That's our thing. We converted a garage for my grandpa to move into, actually, and now it's a rental. But so as a single mom, growing up trying to raise me, we always rented out, the front unit, and we were in the back. And just seeing how she was able to use that to, support us was really amazing. And so I immediately saw the value there where it's like 2 houses for the price of one. Like, why wouldn't you buy that? And normally, duplexes are a little less expensive than single family homes in a lot of instances too. So seeing that, every day was very inspiring. So.
Yeah, that's really cool that you got to witness that firsthand.
Yeah, it was crucial.
So Fran, you already shared with us that you don't read a lot of like real estate or business books, but you do read. So do you have any book recommendations for us, albeit not real estate related?
Thank you. Okay, I'm an English major, so I love novels, and people disagree with me, but I think you can learn so much from novels and stories. And I think a lot of real estate books or practical books could be a list, right? They're not as fun to read. So, I just started, I'm listening. Audiobooks are books. English major, I'm the authority. Audiobooks are books. So I just started listening to Game of Thrones. Which has been incredible. Gosh, I don't know. Right now, it's just my escape right now. So I've been reading a lot of, I got on the Colleen Hoover hype, things like that. Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'll send you some book recommendations. You gotta look them up.
Yeah, this is not my realm. So you're name dropping, and I'm sure there will be somebody who knows who you're talking about, but it's not me.
It's funny, for so long, after, reading all the classics and all of that, studying English, and then moving to children's publishing, where the majority of the books were picture books. I read so many picture books, and that was what I would recommend to people, because I'm I read, 50 a day. So
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at if we are talking about fiction. So I probably read children's books anywhere from 5 to 12 a day. So
yeah. He's a lucky gal.
Yeah.
I do love picture books so much, though. I think they're such a cool, unique art form where the words are very minimal, and then the story tells or the pictures tell its own story, the illustrations. So I love picture books, but probably not the recommendations you're looking for.
Well, they're just not the usual, but I appreciate that. I never said that it had to be real estate related. People just kind of just assume, or that's what they're reading. So that's okay. I like it. So what are you currently obsessed with?
Oh, yes. Okay. I am obsessed with tinned fish. It's my entire personality now.
A place? Is that candy? What is it?
Okay. It's literally fish in a can, anchovies, sardines, mussels. Your face right now.
It is 100% not what I expected. I thought you were going to say it was a trendy coffee spot, lunch, brunch place.
It's a little trendy right now. There's actually this local chef. She lives in this gorgeous Eichler too. But she's been she has tin fish date night, her and her husband, and they tried different tinned fish and review it. And it's actually kind of hard to find. It's a lot of specialty stores. You can get some online. So it's been I went up to the city this weekend, and we stumbled upon this specialty store that served and sold tinned fish, but got some mackerel and some octopus, some squid. So, and it's delicious. I know, when you think of anchovies and sardines, you think of it on a pizza, so gross, but it's so good. I'm going to bring you some. Do you like fish?
I like fish. My only experience with tinned fish is my dad eating it, and it smelled up the entire house.
Look, it's not a can of tuna. It's not chicken of the sea. It's
I like can of tuna. I used to eat that all the time, every day. I mean, I still do, but I guess you're right. I have canned tuna, so tinned fish wouldn't be that weird, but that is not something that I expected. So.
That is my current obsession.
I like it. Yeah. That is really cool. Now, this is really deep diving into Francesca Lampert.
How weird I am.
Well, that was really interesting. Tell me something boring about you.
So even though I'm into the wildly fascinating and probably polarizing world of tinned fish, actually my day-to-day is really boring. So my boring fact about me is that I meal prep and eat the same thing every day pretty much. I get like fixated on foods, so I don't mind eating the same thing and I still look forward to it. But it's like, it's oatmeal every morning. It's ground chicken, beef, some kind of ground meat for lunch. And then it's salmon like for dinner, basically every night. Prepared. I do it at the beginning of the week. My boyfriend and I just heat up and go. I love it. I love cooking, but it's been great to just simplify my life a little bit. It's a little more efficient. It's a huge time saver. It's a huge money saver. And it helps me like, with my decision fatigue. I'm making so many decisions every day. And so to like sit down and be like, what do I want for dinner? Like some days I'm just like, I can't handle that question. So I know what's for dinner. I look forward to it. End of story. It's been,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up because I have talked about that on the show with other guests is,
oh, really?
Yeah, meal planning and how much it simplifies your life. And I think that that's amazing. Unfortunately, and I said this before, my husband will not eat the multiple meals of the same meal like I can.
Some people have like a thing with leftovers where they like, for me, I'm like, day 3 is like, it just gets better.
Yeah. For sure. So I threw a party over the weekend for my brother. I co-threw it. And we had a taco lady there. Right. And so we got so much leftover taco like fixings and I'm just eating tacos every day. And my husband was done after day 2. And I'm like, nope, tacos again. He's like, what's for lunch? Tacos.
Put it in the eggs in the morning. Yeah, leftovers are my love language.
I love that. I'm going to make like frozen burritos out of the leftovers. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You can freeze them. Yeah. Gotta start a side.
Very exciting. So exciting talking about this. Leftovers.
So much for a boring fact.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing though, because I say boring, but they're always really interesting. I just want to take the overthinking out of something being interesting, right?
Exactly. So, I do the same thing with my clothes actually too, where I wear the same like mix of like sneakers or sometimes boot. I'm actually wearing it right now. It's like my uniform. I have these pants that they're like slacks that I got on Amazon. For $30 and I have 5 pairs and then I wear like a shirt. And then if it's cold, I throw on a jacket. That's the uniform.
I love it. I did something similar, many years ago that I, actually simplified my closet by just wearing about 5 colors.
Oh yeah. That's great. Like different kinds of like weighted like capsule wardrobe.
Yeah. Yeah. So blue, green, brown, black, gray is basically all I wear. So everything matches with each other.
Yeah.
Right. There's no extreme that I can only wear one pair of pants with. Everything is like interchangeable. And that has really helped as well. So anyways, you got me on that subject. Love it. I love, like the decision fatigue is so real. I hate when I have to look at like, what am I wearing today? And that ends up taking time and energy. And I get frustrated, especially. So I hate putting laundry away. And so like having to dig through the pile, is it in the clean? Is it in the dirty? Is it hanging? Is it in the drawer? It's just like so much chaos. And so narrowing down not just your food decisions, but what you're wearing every day really helps with your brain power for making the big decisions.
Exactly. And I think too, it's like, I know what I eat is going to make me feel the best. And I know what I'm going to wear is like going to make me feel the most comfortable. So like, if it works, we don't need to try a different cuisine every day, right?
Thank you.
Mason.
I wasn't going to say it. I'm going to listen to it. But I have been, okay, now we're just chatting. But I have been planning out my meals every Sunday for the week. So I'm working from home a lot more. And so I'm cooking more, but I plan out, what I'm cooking and then do one shopping trip. So then there's not as much of the, it's like an in-between. Never do we not know what we're having. It's usually just from the list, whatever I have, there's easy ones and then there's ones that take up more time. So,
yeah, but that's going to help you illuminate food waste and you're going to save so much money because versus like every day being like, what different meat are we going to have? It's like, okay, no, we have all this ground beef. Or like, that's kind of what we're doing today. Or like how Jasmine like themes her meals. I think that's, then there's like never extra, you buy some cilantro and then you're like, well, I only needed that for one meal. It's like, okay, now we can use it up.
Okay. We could probably cut this down, but I just downloaded this app that you can scan your inventory into in your fridge and your pantry, and then it will actually suggest recipes based on what you have already.
Oh, I've heard of that when it was like a website, like before apps or something.
Right.
Have you tried it?
So I'm just starting to try it. And so I still have to like finish importing the majority of my inventory of what I bought, but I feel more comfortable buying in bulk, knowing that I can base my recipes off of what I have, because a lot of times I resist buying in bulk because I'll make that meal once and then forget about it, because out of sight, out of mind, I forget about the sack of potatoes in the cabinet until it's like growing and then I throw it out. It was such a waste of money when I could have just bought 2 potatoes for that night. So I'm really looking forward to, diving into that. And we've kind of talked about, making sure that we're going over our finances with a fine-tooth comb going into this next year. I think this is my air in 2023. So going into this year, we want to make sure that we're very mindful of our spending habits. And for me, for some reason, when I think of spending habits, I like zero in on groceries. Got to this under control.
I think it's because it's something that we engage with every single day, right? Like 2 to 4 times a day, we have the opportunity to like make a choice financially regarding our food. And so I think that's why like immediately we're like groceries.
Right. And then with like inflation and stuff, and that's, something that on a week to week basis, I'm definitely looking at the money that I'm spending. Whereas a lot of the stuff that I have, especially for business, is on auto payment withdrawal. Right. So definitely am analyzing those, but I don't feel it as much as like that. And then buying gas. Right. So anyways.
Exactly. Especially with my new tinned fish addiction. I mean, expensive.
Yeah, I would imagine the good stuff. I would think it would be really expensive.
The good stuff.
So what is next for Francesca Lampert?
Yeah. What's next? I'm actively looking for more multi-units in Oakland. The eviction moratorium is still in place. I think probably once California is out of its state of emergency, which is slated for the end of February, I think that eviction moratorium will lift. But I think right now it's kind of scaring folks off. Like, for example, that property, my duplex that I bought, that was on the market for a year. It was on the market for a whole year. So I think there's still opportunity there. And I think investors are going to re-engage as soon as the moratorium is up. It'll be interesting to see how much that gets stifled with like rising interest rates. But as an investor, the rising interest rates don't bother me. It's just another number. It's just another factor. And some deals aren't as lucrative as others right now. But there's still a lot of opportunity. There's a handful right now that I'm analyzing that I think are great deals. My dad and I want to buy one together. So we're kind of zeroing in on that. But my numbers still work with the higher rates, and eventually I'll refi and that'll go down and I'll give myself a raise. So
yeah, I like that outlook. And I have had like past clients and people reach out asking if I thought that it's still a good time to buy with the rising interest rates. And if you ask me as an investor who plans to do this for a long time, as a real estate agent that helps people buy and sell, like it's always a good time to buy, right? Yeah. It's just, maybe the numbers are a little different, right? But as long as they work.
Yeah. I mean, you just live and die by your numbers. And, especially like in August, I bought 2 properties. So people are like, is it a good time to buy? And I'm like, I am. So
yeah, exactly. I can only speak for myself that I'm actively buying and shopping.
Yeah. I mean, I bought a primary residence. I bought a pretty short-term, flip of 1 year. And then I'm looking for another long-term buy and hold. So
which I think that you'll find pretty easily. Inventory of small multis in Oakland. I took a look at them. probably when you said that that's what you were doing and retiring on soon. And there seems like plenty of inventory. And then if you really wanted to get aggressive, I'm sure, I mean, you have the capabilities of finding something off market and reaching out to sellers directly. So,
yeah, although I really haven't been doing that. When it comes to myself, like I'm lazy, like I go on the MLS, I have a setting. So all Oakland multi-units after they've been on the market for 90 days, that's when I start looking at them. I'm not really interested in like competing with,
right.
someone who's going to live there, and have it be their primary residence. Like that's great. I'm looking for deals. So I don't really engage with the properties after, some time has passed anyways. And that's when, okay, we can start negotiating, or I can start looking and seeing what the problem is and if it's, fixable. Like I wouldn't buy a triplex that's occupied, with like below market rents because, the people have been there a long time. Like, they could stop paying and then I wouldn't be making money. So that's not my interest. For me, it's like, I'm looking for mostly vacant properties. Maybe they have one tenant in there. That's fine. If I can offset that cost by putting in, Section 8 and doing my thing there. So I'm pretty specific about what I'm looking at because, I just want to be able to, have everything sort of fit with my strategy. So I'm pretty religiously strict with that.
That's good. That's good. And that's how you should be with
I self-manage it. Eventually I'd like to get a property manager, but right now I'm self-managing because it's been so easy. I kind of feel like I have a property manager through the Oakland Housing Authority, and they're always so they are always sharing about like different opportunities. I mean, I just learned that if I buy a unit and it's vacant and it's not a Section 8 tenant in there, and I put a Section 8 tenant in there, I get a bonus. Or if I have a Section 8 tenant, so let's say one of my tenants move out, and I put another Section 8 tenant in there, then they'll pay for up to 2 months of the vacancy. So that really brings like my vacancy risk down as well.
Oh my goodness. Everybody listening, go out, look for Section 8 in your community. You'll be doing good, and your numbers will be doing well as well, it sounds like.
It's such a win-win for everyone. And just thinking about being like an ethical investor and how to help the community that you're investing in. And that just seems like a good choice.
For our listeners and watchers, where can they get in touch with you and maybe hear about possible upcoming investment opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the best way to reach me, and you can kind of follow along with what I'm doing. I'm not as good about updating it as I want to be, but on Instagram at Francesca.Lampert is the best way to catch up.
Perfect. And we will have that Instagram handle in our show notes, so you can easily click through that if you have trouble spelling Francesca. I know there's a couple different ways.
Oh yeah. Here it's at Francesca.Lampert, Lampert. People always want to put an H in there. It's all right.
In your last name? Oh, in your first name. Yes.
Yeah, Francesca. There's like a couple different spellings or K's. Mm-hmm. And people with Lampert, they always want it to be Lambert as well. So
perfect. Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure interviewing you. This has been so much fun, just chatting about real estate, which is what we do, but a nice one-on-one setting. And I appreciate your time.
No one else ever wants to listen to me drone on about this. So
it's just me. You can call me anytime.
I will. I'm going to take you up on that, as I do.
Yeah. Thanks, Fran.
Thank you so much. This was so special. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. That is it for our show with Francesca Lampert, aka Fran Lamp, with the Johnson Lampert Group. I am so lucky to know her. She's such an inspiration and doing so much at a young age. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and you were able to learn a bit. I know I definitely did, and I'm super inspired to go buy something and rent a Section 8. And I'm going to look into it as soon as I hang up. If you enjoyed this episode and found value, please leave a 5-star review for the show. I would really appreciate it. Definitely subscribe as well. And I appreciate you listening. So happy to have you here. If you'd like to connect with me, feel free to do so either through our show website, obsessedwithrealestateshow.com, or you can find me on Instagram, AlanaGeorge_real estate. Same on TikTok, AlanaGeorge_real estate. And if you'd like to look into investing opportunities that I have to share, please connect with me through my website, clearconnectioncapital.com. I will see you on the next one.